name's Jo Avery and I'm here to tell you about my new book, New Patchwork and Quilting Basics. So welcome to my schoolhouse. I'm talking to you here from my home near Edinburgh in Scotland. This is my studio, lovingly built for me by my husband. I'm meant to be giving classes in here around about now. Everything's on hold at the moment, as I'm sure you know. So instead I've got this fantastic empty space to tell you all about my book and to show you all the quilts and projects from the book. So it's coming into its own, being able to help me with this. So as I say, this is my new book, New Patchwork and Quilting Basics. It came out in February. It's a basics book, so it's aimed at beginners, but it's also aimed at what I would call ambitious beginners or quilters coming back to quilting for a break, or even people who know all about quilting but want some really fun projects to do, because what we do in this book is we move quite quickly through the easy bits and the easy projects and into some extra skills and things that you wouldn't normally get in beginners books, and onto more intermediate projects. Because I found that when I was starting quilting, I got really bored with some of the quilting books where they were just offering quite easy projects. Simple and easy quilts are great. Everyone likes to have something that they can knock up in a weekend, and we certainly have those in this book. But I also wanted to give you a little bit more so that you could return to this book for many years to come and try out various different things. So there's quite a comprehensive basics section telling you everything you need to know. It's got all the tools you're going to need, all about piecing, all about quilting, about basting, binding, everything you need, stuff about choosing fabric, colour. So hopefully that's very going to be an essential part of this book and something you'll keep going back to when you need advice. And then we move on to our projects, and we start off with a section on strips and squares. So the first project is my Semaphore crib quilt. So it's always good to start off with something not too big when you're starting to quilt. The quilting can be challenging on your first few projects, so start off with something small like this. We would call this a cot quilt in the UK, but I think it's a really generous size for that. I think this could go on a child's bed, not just a baby, and I think it could be a great lap quilt. The red, white and blue palette, I've designed that to be fine for babies, but also not to be too babyish, so that older children could enjoy it as well. I love red, white and blue quilts. So that's a great way to get started on your quilting journey. Next in the strip and squares selection, we have got the Zen Garden quilt. So this quilt is very modern. Looks like it's going to be quite difficult to do, but actually it's super easy. You have a really clever way of making this with just two different sizes of blocks and two different sizes, the same size blocks in the background, and then doing all sorts of clever things with layout so that we can create this really fun quilt. Comes together very easy. It's a great stash busting ones for those of you who've already got a big stash you want to use up. And then we're going to move on to the next item in the strips and squares, which is the Dancing Panda quilt. So both the Zen Garden and the Dancing Panda quilts were named by my son. He's an artist and he's very good at thinking up names for quilts, which gets surprisingly difficult when you've made quite a few. So this is a typical 9 patch in this sort of checkerboard, blacks and whites, lots of bright colours. Another great one to get you started, help you build your confidence. This is a single bed quilt, would look really lovely on a child's bed in these bright colours. Next up, we're on to our triangle section. And the first one in the triangle section is our Tree of Paradise quilt. So this is full-size red and white quilt. I love antique quilts and I love red and white quilts, and I especially like this Tree of Paradise block. So I've super scaled it up so that it gives a really nice mashup of traditional and modern, I think. But these are big half square triangles. We show you various different ways of creating the half square triangles, 2-in-1, 4-in-1. It comes together really quickly. I've hand quilted it because sometimes I like to take my time, especially as quite a special quilt like this. But you know, you can machine quilt this, it would look just as good. Next up is a block keeper. So this is a quite fun thing to do, and this would also be great for those of you who already know how to quilt. It's a really nice fun project, especially if you go to lots of evening classes where you collect up all your blocks for a sampler quilt. Maybe you're doing a sampler quilt sew along online. Really nice storage here. We've got all these flannel leaves, and you can keep your blocks in those. And you can carry it around to classes, or it's just a fun storage thing. And you get to have another play with half square triangles. There's actually just 2 different half square triangles made here with these solids, 8-in-1 half square triangles at a time. So another really great skill building project for you there. And then lastly, in the triangle section, we have got the pinhole star quilt. So I love this quilt, this fantastic fabric on the background which looks like starry skies, and then these beautiful patterned fabrics. This is a great way to use large scale pattern fabrics, and to learn how to do flying geese. So that's what we use with this. We do 4-in-1 flying geese, so more skills. And then next we have a section that I call skill building. We cover 3 new skills for you. The first one is curve piecing. That's the one model I don't have here. C&T have held on to that for their booths. But it's the design that we're going to use for curves is a very simple curve. It's called my stream quilt, and as you can see, it's really effective, but a very, very gentle curve to get you started on this great technique. Then we get on to some foundation paper piecing. This is my spool notebook holder. So this is a really fun project. You could do this easily in a day. It's a great introduction to foundation paper piecing. It's a great way of using up all the little scraps you've accumulated by now. And you can do all sorts of things with it. With the templates in the book, you can have a play around, and you don't have to make exactly the same thing. For instance, I used the little single spool blocks and made this little trio of pin cushions, which I think is super cute, based on variegated thread this time. I love variegated thread, so I made them slightly differently so they look like variegated thread. I've also created a pouch, which I did for a giveaway, with just a strip of these. So, you know, there's lots of things you can do with the templates in the book. You don't have to just follow the project. You can have a good play around and be creative. Lastly, in the skill building section, there is applique. We have I've updated a sort of Baltimore album garland into quite a modern version of it. What we cover in this applique section is leaves and circles and flowers. This is needle turn applique, which is my favourite technique, so I wanted to really include that in the book. I do also include a little bit about raw edge applique if you'd rather have a go at that first. But you know, this is very simple. The way I show you how to deal with the points on the leaves, the little V bits on the petals here, and the circles. Once you've got those 3 shapes sorted and you've worked out how to do them, follow my instructions, you can do any applique. So with all my tips and tricks, I think you could start to and really enjoy this wonderful slow stitching art. I love to needle turn applique sitting on the sofa at night, and it doesn't matter that it takes a while to do. What I often say about quilting is it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Enjoy the journey and don't be in too much of a rush. So lastly, at the end of the book, there's a section of intermediate quilts. It's the mix and match section where we take all the techniques that we've learned in the rest of the book and we mix them together for these 3 show-stopping intermediate quilts here, which I think will appeal to anybody at all, no matter how long they've been quilting. First of all, we've got the Autumn Leaves quilt here. This is a really fantastic quilt that if you do decide to raw edge applique it, you could pretty much do this in a day. So this is a good quick and easy quilt. Or you can take your time like I did and needle turn applique them all. This is inspired by the birch tree wood I've got outside here, which I'd love to show you, but unfortunately we've got to concentrate on the quilts today. We can't go on a little walkabout. Next one in the mix and match section is this. Could be my favourite quilt in the whole book. So this is Pimple Wizard. This was quilted by my good friend Tatiana Duffy, who's an amazing quilter, on her long arm machine. I quilt everything myself on a domestic machine, or a hand quilt. But this and the next quilt I'm going to show you were the two quilts I wanted to get a little bit of a collaboration with, so I asked my friends to help me. So what we've got here is what I would describe as a modern pickle dish block and a modern double wedding ring block, and I have mixed them all up together to create this really vibrant, modern, fun quilt, which is a great way again of using all the scraps you've accumulated so far if you've been following along and making all the quilts in my book. You can really get lots of little different pieces in here. You can use, I've used all these low volume fabrics in the background, but you know, lots of people are making this quilt already now, having got the book, and I've seen some fantastic versions coming through. You could also do something like, for instance, just take out this square here and make a lovely cushion, and a great way to try out these techniques without committing to a whole quilt. So next up, and the last quilt in the book, is the bedding plants quilt. So this again is one of my favorites from the book. It's a row quilt. I love the idea of the pun of bedding plants, and I was super happy to find out that you in the US you also call them bedding plants. So I like the idea that, you know, plants that go into the bed, flower bed, and onto our proper bed. So in this one we've got all these different techniques we've been using. We've got some curves, we've got some foundation paper piecing, we've got half square triangles, we've got applique, we've got squares, we've got all sorts going on. I've made it in this very sort of vintagey feed sack 1930s fabric palette, but I'm about to make a new version of this, really modern fabrics, because I think it could look stunning on a dark background, really bright coloured solid fabrics with the flowers. And then I'm going to organise a sew along, so that's going to be happening very soon. We're going to be sewing along on my Instagram feed and on my blog, with lots of other people taking part, other bloggers co-hosting with me. I'm going to be sharing lots of extra tips and tricks on my blog with this. It's going to start maybe around July or August. We'll see how we can get on getting fabric and everything at the moment. You can find me on Instagram at Jo Avery Stitch. That's the best place to look for me. You can look at my bio there and find links to everywhere else that you can find me. You can also find me on my blog at blog.mybearpaw.com. So I hope you'll get the book, and I hope you'll join in with the sew along, or you'll have fun making lots of things from this book, whether you're a new quilter or an old quilter or anything in between. And thanks very much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed looking at all my quilts. Bye bye.